What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we discuss the news that both the Big Ten and Pac 12 have postponed all fall sports indefinitely and will seek to possibly play football in the spring. Plus, we break down some quick hitting news stories from around the NFL and break down what impact each move has. Then, we break down the top fights of the UFC 252 main card and debate who we think will come out on top. Finally, we go over the race for the eighth seed in the Western Conference of the NBA with only 2 games away from the start of the playoffs. All that and much more coming your way right now. Nick, how's it going? What a week it's been, and it's only Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm ready for this week to speed up. I know I'm probably a little bit more excited about UFC 252 than you, but I'm ready for it to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a month since they announced this fight. I mean, probably 2 months actually. But I'm really looking forward to this, and I can't wait to watch it. Hopefully, when this is all over, I'm definitely gonna take myself to an event. Uh, if I have to travel, hey, that's kind of a perk. Add to that little mini vacation.
Yeah, I mean, I hear airline is cheap nowadays.
Yeah, if
Um,
only I could predict where it's gonna be, could take advantage of those deals.
it's true. True. Um, there's a lot of things that have gone on in the past couple weeks, and I say it every week since we've gotten sports back. But yay, we actually have sports to talk about. So I just want to keep that going because everything that's gone on, we actually have real sports to talk about. So I want to start off with the hot race that's going on. That's the race for the eighth seed in the Western Conference in the NBA. Right now, the Grizzlies hold the eighth seed, and then a half game back in with the ninth seed is the Trailblazers. Then only 1 game back of the Grizzlies is the Spurs and the Suns, both tied. So there's 3 teams within contention of the eighth seed. 2 games to go. The race is on fire at this point. I mean, the Grizzlies can't afford, and at the time of recording, it looks like the Grizzlies are losing to the Celtics, so they could be in a whole heap of trouble. And then on top of that, it's not like every other NBA season where the eighth seed just squeaks by and makes it into the playoffs. They have to have a 1 game against the ninth seed to truly prove that they belong. So even if you fall to the ninth seed, the Grizzlies do. If that happens, that there's still a possibility that they can make it.
Right, and just remember that if the ninth seed, if it's the Blazers and they beat the Grizzlies, they do need to play one more time to decide. So the ninth seed does have to win twice, where the eighth seed only has to win once.
Correct. So there's a lot to go over, but I want to get what are your thoughts on what's going on in the West so far?
I mean, this is the perfect storm for the NBA right now. Everything has been going according to plan. They've set up this playoff perfectly, and every team is playing right into what they wanted to. You've got all these teams right at the edge in the West. You've got the Grizzlies at the eighth right now, the Blazers, the Spurs, and the Suns right behind, and they're all vying for the spot. There's 2 games left for most of these teams, and it's coming down to the wire, just like all of these games have been coming down to the last few seconds. And this is this is exactly what we wanted. This is exactly what we needed to get ourselves right back into sports. We need these clutch style plays, these clutch moments all happening at back to back to back. This is how we're gonna just get all those endorphins, use all those endorphins, and use all that adrenaline we have built up, that we've been craving this, and we're finally getting to absorb it all. It's so fantastic. I love every second of it, and I am so pumped for the playoffs. I love playoff sports, and especially playoff basketball. I remember, when we went to a couple of the Celtics games of the playoffs. It's absolutely an atmosphere like no other, and
It's electric.
it is. It's unbelievable, and honestly, like if you could choose to be anywhere you want to be in a playoff game, or any championship game, there's nothing like those. But back to the eighth seed race. The Suns are absolutely on fire. They have a 6 game win streak going on in the bubble. Let's see if they can win out, because I think that'd be absolutely amazing to see a team that everybody pretty much counted out. No one gave them a chance. They were kind of a gimmick team coming into the bubble, and now Devin Booker has absolutely taken them and turned them into a playoff contender, which is
Not just Devin Booker, but DeAndre Ayton has been quite the story, the turnaround story. I mean, he looks like he's healthy. He looks like the number one overall pick that the Suns actually wanted to take in the draft.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, he was a huge pick for them, and he's finally coming through for them in a big way, and that's definitely helping. But I really, and you know how I feel about Devin Booker. I don't want to overlook him. I have him as a top three player in the league. I think he could be the questionable number one player in the league, but I think you just have to give him a chance. You know, you can't really say. Even Draymond Green said it and got fined $50,000 for it, saying he needs to get out of Phoenix. It's not the place for him. His talent's being wasted. His best years are right now, and he can't let them go to waste. He needs to get out of there. He needs to go to a real contender because he'll win rings wherever he goes. All he needs one more person. He needs someone that's healthier than DeAndre Ayton and that can provide a little bit more than him. And I think that would create for a great championship run for any team. But it's definitely not the Phoenix Suns. I think they're just getting lucky right now, and I would love to see it go further because it's a Cinderella story. But you know what? Truth is, I don't think it's gonna go much farther. I think the Blazers really only have to win one more game to lock up the ninth seed, and they're gonna do it. Damian Lillard's playing lights out right now. He's absolutely insane. If there was an MVP for the bubble, it'd probably be him. It's either him or Devin Booker. But Damian Lillard is amazing right now, and I don't think there's anything stopping the Trailblazers.
Yeah, I mean, Damian Lillard just had his 10th 50-point game of his career. That puts him in rare company with Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, some other insane players and Hall of Famers and legends of the game. Um, People are sleeping on Dame time. They really are. I mean, there's nothing that this man hasn't done to show that the Blazers shouldn't be taking seriously. It's tough because he has somewhat of a squad around him. He's got CJ McCollum, who's a really good number two. And then you have Carmelo Anthony, who is a shell of what he once was, but he's still a viable option. And then Yusuf Nurkic at the back end of the lineup. So their starters are there. Where they struggle is their depth. When Damian Lillard is not on the floor, other players struggle to find their own shot and struggle to get anything moving. I think that's where the Portland Trailblazers really have an issue. So if I want to give Damian Lillard all the credit in the world. I think he's a top 5 point guard that we have in this league. I don't think that there are many players that can outmatch him. He has shown that the whatever the situation is, time, pressure, it doesn't matter. He wants the ball in the waning moments of a game in a series. He is willing to put it all on his shoulders, and he's going to send a team home, and it's not going to be his. And he's shown that with his clutch performances. Where I find some concern is their matchup ability with some of the other teams that they have to face. Because Damian Lillard is a point guard, and if he's being guarded by somebody like LeBron James or Anthony Davis, I mean, they could swallow him. I mean, that's just what it becomes. So I think the Blazers, while a viable option, they have to truly, you know, get him some help. But as far as the race for the eighth seed is concerned, I think it's going to come down to the Grizzlies and the Blazers. I don't think the Suns can make the leap, even though they have had such the turnaround performance. They've done everything right. They just need certain dominoes to fall in their favor. I just don't see it happening based on the what they need to have happen. I just don't see that. And the Spurs, they confuse me. I really don't know what to think about the Spurs. I mean, you always have Greg Popovich, so that means you're always in contention and you can't be counted out. But I, I mean, I can't really go to anybody on this team and show they're a good team, but there's nobody to lead them, and I don't think that they're going to be able to make the cut. Let alone if they do make the cut, hold their own in any series, especially against the team that they would have to face in the first round, which would be the Lakers. Um,
I mean,
so
I don't think that there's any team vying for the eighth seed right now that's gonna be any threat to any of the other playoff contenders. I don't see them making it past the first round, whoever it is. I don't care if you're the hot-handed Blazers or the hot
well,
Phoenix Suns. It doesn't matter. Like I don't.
but you
Are
can't tell me that the Lakers haven't looked vulnerable in the
Oh,
last few
oh yeah,
games.
the Lakers have not. They've been a shell of themselves. They have not found their groove. They've been struggling. Anthony Davis, he was hot for a few games, and he's still doing his job, but he needs everybody else to play at the level they're used to playing at. He can't carry the team every single game. It's near impossible to be doing what Damian Lillard and Devin Booker are doing on a consistent basis. Time is going to catch up with you, and you're going to succumb to just the moment. But you're not gonna always have those nights where you're balling out, and they're having a ton of those right now. But I still think that who they are, their unit, their coaching staff is gonna get them past anybody in the first round, whoever that eighth seed is. I don't think they're gonna have an issue. I've said this last week, and I'll say it again. They're gonna have trouble starting in the second round of the playoffs. I think whoever they play is going to be a real threat for them. We've seen that in the first couple games of the bubble where they were losing. They weren't playing well, and same thing for the Clippers. They're also struggling a little bit right now. But as far as the eighth seed goes, it doesn't matter who it is. They're not making it more than 5 games.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we both have the same idea that the Grizzlies and Blazers will be playing each other uh, for for the eighth seed. It's just depending on who you think is good. I think they're going to switch. I think the Grizzlies will move down to the nine, and the Blazers will move to the eighth seed. And then I think the Blazers will be able to hold them off for one game, win that, and they'll be able to move forward as the eighth seed. From there, I think anything is truly possible. I look at, even though Carmelo Anthony is not what he used to be back in New York or even Denver, I look at his ability. He knows LeBron James more than pretty much anybody else in the league at this point. He can score with the best of them. CJ McCollum, he's a really good defender, and he can spot up, shoot the ball from wherever he needs to on the court. And then obviously Damian Lillard is no joke. Uh, we've exhausted his name so much, but it can't be over enunciated the fact that he can truly carry that franchise. And then all they have to really do is figure out how to. You can't stop LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You have to learn. You have to figure out how to limit them. I think if they can figure it out in Portland, or can if the Blazers can figure out how to limit LeBron and AD, and just cause problems for them. I don't think I think the Lakers are going to be in some serious trouble. And even though the Blazers may not actually win the series, if they can show that, bring that blueprint to light, and really like show that in a series this could happen, I think the Lakers are in a major deficit moving forward.
I mean, yeah, I think if it's the Lakers and the Blazers playing in the first round of the playoffs, you're gonna want Avery Bradley, and unfortunately, he's not there. He'd be the perfect defender against uh,
Damian Lillard.
Damian Lillard. Thank you. But I think that no matter what he does, he's not going to be able to. No one on the Blazers is going to be able to keep up with LeBron and AD. I don't think even yeah, anybody on their bench. I don't see that the matchups are just uh, it's a complete mismatch. I don't think that they're outside of Damian Lillard. There isn't much of an option, and I
I
think
think the
that
only I
you're.
think the only way that the Lakers turn this around is if Danny Green finds his stroke again. I mean, he looks like he's fishing out there. He keeps, shooting a line out there and he's not getting anything. I really, that's a big issue for the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, he's one player though, and I think that you still have other players, Kyle Kuzma. I think that they have plenty of talent that can go out there and contribute. And if Danny Green just needs to be a role player, that's fine. I think they have plenty of those that can contribute in small ways. They don't need a lot of stars. They don't need a huge player like, say Goran Dragic from the Heat, getting major points off the bench. They have plenty of starters that can get them the points they need. They just need some consistent play, from their bench that will allow them to get some rest and recover for their next set. So I don't think that the the Blazers have the depth, nor do any of the other eighth seed teams.
Yeah, so I'm in full agreement with you. I think that what we're bound to see, and this is one of the tightest races I've seen in the Western Conference in a long time, um, because it's not just how close it is, but the amount of talent that we're seeing all compiled within one game of each other. Four teams, an insane amount of talent, insane amount of experience. They're all vying for two spots, which is then going to be whittled down to one spot. I think that's incredible. I'm really excited to watch this. I want to flip to the other side, to the Eastern Conference for a second. Okay. We've seen some teams that have surprised us and some teams that have uh, let us down. I I just want to get your thoughts. What is an overall surprising team for you? Good, bad, or indifferent? What is one team that truly you think has surprised you in this restart
Are you talking specifically for the Eastern Conference?
for the East? Yes.
Um, yeah, I'd probably. I'm gonna go back to the Miami Heat. I still believe in them. I think that what they're doing is really strong. I think they have a lot more depth. If Dragic can come back and be 100%, or just be consistent for them, I think that's huge. But I said this last week. They have so many underappreciated weapons, and not underappreciated by the organization, underappreciated by the players around them. No one really takes a lot of these young guys seriously, and they need to, because they are true threats, especially on the perimeter. They're gonna make you pay if you don't contest their shots, and even when you contest their shots, half the time it's going in. So I think they can really do some damage. But I think their kryptonite for this year, at least, is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks, because of their size. I think the Bucks just have so much size that it kind of towers over the Heat, and kind of intimidates them, which hurts. But we just saw the Miami Heat and the Bucks play, and it was right down to the wire. It was a really close game. So I
And the
think.
Bucks have been on a downward slide the last week or so. I mean, if you've looked at the last 3 or 4 games, they've been down to the wire, gritty type of games, and they haven't. They've only won one of them. And I think that there's something to be said. I think the Miami Heat might have shown that they struggle when you truly take the ball to them, when you get up in their grill and provide uh, like a nasty factor, if you will. I think of guys who used to get into your face on the court and would get you off your game mentally. I think that's what the Miami Heat do, and that's why they went after certain players like Goran Dragic and Kelly Olynyk and those type of Jimmy Butler. I mean, he's well known for all of that. They have a certain just swagger about them that can truly throw off your game, and I think that they can probably shine in a series against the Bucks.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. I also think the Bucks aren't fully pressing on the gas, because they don't need to. They're the best team in the league coming into the bubble, and I think that they knew where their place was. They didn't have to do too much. They weren't going to show too much. They were going to use this time to just get themselves loose, get themselves used to the play again. So I don't think we're really seeing the real Bucks. I think we're going to get a real taste of them in the playoffs. So I'm taking what they do with a grain of salt, because I know they're capable of more, and I expect more from them come playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, there's another team. There's a team in the East that truly surprised me. And it wasn't for a good reason. That'd be the Philadelphia 76ers. They have just been, I don't think abysmal is truly defines what they have looked like on the court. Obviously, Ben Simmons went down with an injury. He is done for the playoffs. We won't see him till next year, so that is a major loss. I mean, that I think that's the the most major loss that they could have suffered. Now they're banking on Al Horford and Joel Embiid to not only get along but to produce and make up for Ben Simmons' output, and I just don't see that happening. They've continued, even with Ben Simmons when he was healthy, they continued to falter. They were falling in the standings. They were losing to teams that they were dominating early on in the season. It seems to me that the 76ers just, there's always a reason for them to be losing. There's always a reason for them to not have gotten it done. And I'm kind of getting sick and tired of people making excuses. At some point, we have to just say, trust the process didn't work. And I don't believe that the process is working in Philadelphia any longer. Al Horford doesn't want to be there. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons aren't good together. That you need you need a better spread out system because Ben Simmons can't really shoot. Joel Embiid can kind of shoot, but not really. So if you have two guys who are trying to constantly penetrate the basket, you need perimeter guys out on the edges, and they don't have that. And I think that there's a major issue in Philadelphia. I think that the 76ers are looking like the team that, if I had to put money on, would probably be one and done in this year's playoffs.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, as we're speaking, the Suns are beating the Sixers, and I think that if the Sixers lose, that that's a real telling sign because although the Suns are on a streak right now, you don't have to guard too many people. And DeAndre Ayton is being covered by Joel Embiid, so all you have to really do is double team Devin Booker all game, and you'll be perfectly fine. Like it's not that hard of a game plan. But yeah, I agree with you. There's not much that the Sixers are doing right, and everything has been going. Everything's going bad for them. Like you said, Ben Simmons went down. The chemistry is all over the place. I think what's going on, and I think the biggest reason is Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, his the way he carries himself, he's not confident. He's cocky, and he's cocky for the worst reasons. He's not good. He thinks he's a lot better than he is. He thinks he's Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he's nowhere near him, and he tries to bolster himself. And because he's in a big market, people want to think he's much better than he is, but he's not. And I think that really need to start paying attention to who he is and what he's actually doing on the court because he's really not producing for what his expectations are. You have to just be real at some point and decide. I think the Sixers really need to start deciding who do they want to build around. Do you want to build around Embiid still, or do you want to restart and continue around Ben Simmons?
Well, I mean, they're going to be at a crossroads very soon because they're going to have to pay both of these guys, and they're going to have to figure out who, exactly what you said, who is the focal point of this team. Who are we trying to build around? Is it going to be Ben Simmons, and we need to put shooters around him? Then they have to play a lot more small ball, which is fine. That's what most of the league is. Or do you want to build around Joel Embiid? In which case, again, you also have to put shooters around him, but you have to get shooters that can also uh, make their own shot. He's not going to create a shot for them. Ben Simmons is can be a ball handler. He's a point forward, so he can drive to the rim and pass it out, or he can create his own shot within the arc. He's not shooting threes by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that there's a lot that needs to happen in Philadelphia, and they need to get a rein on this whole situation because the ship is going down fast from where they were even a season ago. Obviously not a year ago, but just last season where they ended to where they are now. I've heard former players talk about the locker room inside of Philadelphia, and they have not had some pretty things to say. And I'm talking about players like JJ Redick. I'm talking about uh, what's his name, Jimmy Butler out in Miami. Some of these former players have spoken out about what they dealt with, what they've seen inside the Philadelphia locker room, and they said it's a madhouse, and it's starting to show in their play. I really don't know what to expect from them, except the fact that I think that they're going to be a first round knockout this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I don't think it's I wouldn't even consider thinking about the Sixers. And right now it's positioned to be the Celtics playing them in the first round. So I'm fine with that. That works. That works out in my favor. Keep it up.
Yay! I get to see Al Horford again. Um, you know what? I wouldn't mind sending Joel Embiid home. I think you hit it on the
Oh yeah,
you hit it on the head for the most part. You said he's not good. I disagree with that. I think he is good. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's a superstar. He is a dominant center in a league that doesn't have very dominant centers. That's it.
yeah,
I mean, if I put Yusuf Nurkic or Nikola Jokic or name your top center, he's going to struggle. That is plain and simple. Marc Gasol, um, Brooke Lopez, those guys are going to make him struggle. But because there's nobody as big as him, he thinks that he has free reign above the trees, and he doesn't. That it's just the fact that he's just that much taller. If you want now that Ben Simmons is out, we're going to truly see, can he take the his play to the next level? Can he lead this team and start showing that they can win some games and they can improve their spot in the seeding? I highly doubt it.
yeah. I
Um, Go ahead.
no.
So we're 2 games away. About 4 days from now is when everything comes to an end. It's gonna be an incredible finish. Make sure to check out everything that you see from the Western Conference. Let us know who you have coming out of the West for the eighth seed, and let us know who your biggest surprise is in the East, because there is a lot that we that we didn't talk about. If we did this whole show on the NBA, we still probably wouldn't be able to cover everything. Um, but I do want to move on because there was some breaking news earlier today. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 both voted to suspend all fall sports, including football, indefinitely, which means that there will be no football season. There will be no season for any fall sport. Um, and at least the Big Ten, I don't know about the Pac 12 just yet, but the Big Ten has said that they're looking into the possibility of football being played in the spring. Um, that being said, the Big Ten has some notable teams. We're talking about Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State. The Pac 12 has Oregon, Stanford, USC, Arizona. I mean, take your pick. There are tons of national. These are two Power Five conferences that have decided that they will not be playing because due to coronavirus. Um, this has a huge impact on so many different things, and we talked last week a little bit about the fact that some conferences have decided to go intra-conference, which means the SEC will be playing some of their teams together, and that'll be it. It reduces the amount of travel that they're doing and everything else. But Nick, I want to get your thoughts. What did you think of this vote? What did you think of the outcome?
I don't think it wasn't too much of a surprise for me. This has been in the talks for a while. There's been a lot of talks about canceling the season altogether, and they come to the conclusion that they want to postpone it and hopefully bring it back in the fall. I mean, in the spring. But uh, I I don't I don't have a problem with it. Honestly, I know I'm not the biggest college football fan to begin with, but I think that it was just going to be that much harder for we've been complaining, or mostly you have been complaining about the NFL getting the football season going for 32 teams. Well, how about you talk about 100 colleges trying to do this all over the country? That's 10 times harder. And I know the SEC doctors came out and said it's definitely possible. It's not unsafe to be doing this, but there are a lot of obstacles to overcome. And I think that's going to take a lot of time, and it's time that they don't have because they've been dragging their feet. This vote should have come down over a month ago. It should have come down 2 months ago, so they could be installing protocols now, and everybody would be safe and ready to go. But they wanted to wait till the last minute, and they're kind of forcing their hand into this position where they have to move it in order to even try and have a season at all in the 2020-2021 you know sports year. So I think that uh, I know other conferences are going to try to do it. The SEC looks like they are going to be one of few conferences that actually has some football because they have really the biggest schools in their conference, and so they're gonna try to promote those players for the NFL draft next year. And then this has further implications for players like Justin Fields. What does he do? There's a lot of talks right now, a lot of buzz saying he should be transferring out of Ohio State and going to another school to promote himself. Whether that's a good idea or not, or has he done enough to get into the NFL to be the number 2 pick behind Trevor Lawrence? That could it could hurt him. What if there's another Joe Burrow this year that pops out of nowhere and steals the limelight away from both of them? Anything can happen, and you're also kind of ruining the potential of so many stars. As you told me this yesterday, Joe Burrow said, if I wasn't able to play my senior year, I'd be looking for a job right now. And that I'm sure that's going to be true for a lot of the players that are in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and whatever other conferences say they're out. So I think a lot of these players need to think about either transferring or other ways of uh, putting tape out there for the NFL for scouts.
This is why the NFL needs a developmental league. Straight and simple. For players who choose not to go the route of college, they need to be put into a developmental league. You can't expect Justin Fields or any player for that matter that is no longer playing in any of these in the Big 12, in the Big 10 or the Pac 12. You can't expect them to A, pick up and transfer, right? It doesn't just happen overnight. Um, and then also, they have to learn an entirely new system when the season starts in less than a month. Like they don't even know what. So you're talking at fastest they could transfer in a week, fastest. So now you have 3 weeks to move into a brand new system, learn the habits of all your fellow players. So because again, football is the ultimate team sport. I, I I wouldn't tell him to transfer. I would tell him to continuously work out. He needs to work out with coaches and talents that he knows. Try to hit up some alumni and work out with them, former players. Like these are what these guys need to start to figure it out for themselves. Unfortunately, but that's where we are. I'm not completely upset with the decision that they came to because the fact remains that a lot of these colleges, you and I have both spent four or more years on a college campus, right? We understand that students are not always the cleanest, but B, anytime there's a party, anytime they do anything, it's always compact. It's always, you're passing sweat and saliva and whatever, right? You're passing germs consistently. And if that's the case, then those guys have to go play a game and they could be passing anything, including coronavirus, to another team, which then spreads it to their school, and we're back to square one. So I think that they're making a right call for them. With that being said, I think you're right. This could have been handled a lot differently. They had plenty of time to come up with a solution that would have allowed for these teams to these players to transfer earlier on. The fact that this vote happened now is insane to me. Um, Even though I think it's the right call, I think the timing is more than poor. Um, I really just I'm at a loss of words for what they did, and I also want to mention this is exactly what I was saying for the NFL. You just seem to agree with me. Is that they needed to do this earlier. Whether it was a bubble system or not doesn't matter. They needed to figure something out earlier. College football did, and the NFL did. And they both sat on their asses and did absolutely nothing. So the fact remains that they have nobody to blame but themselves. The NCAA, the board of presidents for each of these conferences, they should have taken the reins much earlier on and decided this well ahead of time.
But you have to think, it's not the NCAA doesn't care as much about this as everybody else, because this has such a huge impact on the players, on the athletes, on these student athletes who are trying to find themselves into a professional sport that's extremely hard to get into. They're not thinking about them. It's all about them. It's all about the bottom line. It's never about doing what's best for others. And it's just
That's why Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, needs to go. I have been on the get Mark Emmert out of town train for years now. He just needs to go. The old guard needs to be changed. The NCAA is an outdated, outmoded organization. They need a complete overhaul. That's what we have seen. This is I hope everybody is understanding and their eyes are opening to this. And you can blame whoever you want politically. I don't care. I'm talking specifically the NCAA. I'm talking specifically the organization of the Big Ten and the Pac-12. These the SEC, the ACC, you name it. These organizations needed to have come to a decision well before now. The fact that we are sitting here on August 11th and the decision came down today that the season was suspended. These players, you're not just ruining their season, you're ruining many of their livelihood. A lot of these players come from schools because of the tape that they show and the tape that they put out there against other top contenders. I mean, just for an example, because I know this very well, let's take JC Jackson. Okay. He was I believe, undrafted free agent that the Patriots took, right?
yeah.
He ranked number one last year as a cornerback with passes defended and completion percentage for receivers that they were covering. Number one. He was an undrafted free agent just a couple years ago. But those guys aren't going to be able to even get looked at tape. They're not going to be able to show anything. Teams aren't going to look at them again. And again, it's all because these decisions were made August 11th and not in April or May. And I understand that they were hoping that this would have taken place, but they needed to come up with a solution for if it doesn't, we need to have a deadline to make a decision. And it shouldn't be August 11th. That's my issue. I have no issue with the decision. I have an issue with the timing and what it's doing to these players because you're talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old players, right? These are kids. You're messing with their futures, their livelihoods. Some of these kids could probably ball out in the NFL, and they may never get the chance to be able to do that. The
I,
NCAA doesn't care. These organizations, they don't care.
I think these players do have one saving grace if everything does continue to fail as it has, and that's the XFL. I think the XFL is an amazing platform. I think it had the potential to succeed the last time, and I think it still has a potential. And I think with new ownership, they're going to take it in the right direction. I think they really are going to try to make this work. And this is a perfect opportunity for all the players that are missing out on their senior season that needed that one more year to really prove themselves, or undrafted free agents this year who just got cut because they need to cut the roster by a certain date, and there's just not enough time for you to prove yourself because they drafted somebody and they drafted them for a reason. They want to keep that person because they want to mold them into something. So you're just the odd one out by default. And the XFL is going to be that place for all those misfits to really go and prove themselves. And I'm sure we're going to see a ton of players in the XFL over the next 3, 4, 5 years that are going to be NFL caliber and make their way up the ranks. And I think you're looking for a developmental league. Well, there's going to be one in the XFL. It's just not attached to the NFL. So which is probably a good thing. It's
I
probably
mean,
it's
I'm all for a developmental type league, right? Even if it's not under the umbrella of the NFL, I'm fine with that. But the NCAA should also open up eligibility for these players. They need to reopen eligibility for players that maybe want to stay in college for an extra year to put film out there. There's no reason that they can't do this. If especially if they're willing to take the year off of college and say, you know what, I'm going to postpone my education for one final year and then I'll play it out. I'll play out the final year of my actual education. I don't see why that should become an issue. The NCAA has so many different resources. They are a $1 billion organization. There's no reason that they can't come to a you know any sort of thinking of groupthink that should be able to help players out. And I think you might have hit the nail right on the head. They don't give a shit about the players. They don't. They have shown that time and time again. That's why it's taken all the way up until the end of 2019 for college players to get any sort of movement on them getting, pay for play or, money for likeness or autographs or anything like that. Anything that doesn't, because the NCAA only thinks about themselves. Mark Emmert needs to leave. The whole regime needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that one person is making all the decisions with the NCAA. I think it's just the way it's set up. It's made to make money, and it's always going to be set up that way. It's a business, and I understand business plenty, but this is it has a huge impact on the youth of our nation. This has a huge impact on everything that goes on around us. You know, the trickle down effect of what happens to these guys is massive. They could go on to be huge stars in the NFL and do all these great things, but if they're not given the chance, well, none of that happens. What if Deshaun Watson never happens, but he wants to go and donate half of his salary to the hungry? Well, that couldn't happen because he never got a shot because the NCAA didn't they wanted to take that opportunity away from him by dragging their feet with these COVID talks and then finally deciding to postpone it or just completely cancel it. And then what happens further on if they do end up deciding these conferences do end up deciding to play in the spring? Do we postpone the NFL draft? When does that take place? How long are these seasons? Because then you're pushing into the summer, and then by the time these guys are drafted, it's a week later. They're going to have to go into rookie training camp. So there is no there you're putting a lot of pressure on these student athletes to make tough decisions, and I think probably for the majority of them, the smart thing would be to just redshirt this year. They're all going to be given that opportunity because they can't play, and I would probably just wait until next year until I'm able to show my abilities and take this time to really work on my craft to really make sure I'm ready to go.
Unless they've used that opportunity already, in which case they're shit out of luck. And again, it comes back down to the fact that the NCAA needs to reopen eligibility for players. If you are in your fifth year season, right, your fifth season as a college football player, this is your final year of eligibility. They, if you can't play this year, if you're in the Big Ten or the Pac-12 and you can't play this year, they need to do something to help you. They need to reopen eligibility or allow you to move on to the XFL or NFL or whoever. Like there needs to be some sort of process that needs to be implemented, put in place for these players to have some sort of avenue in which they can take, because right now they're just being left to the ether to figure it out, and there's no direction for them to follow. There's no cobblestone that shows them this is the way. Like there's truly nothing for them. And I, I can only scream from the heavens so much about how much the NCAA needs to do. These players need to, like, the players have power. They don't understand it. As college students, they have complete power because if they choose to not play, if they choose to revolt against the NCAA, guess what happens? The NCAA's bottom line gets truly affected, and that's when change starts to happen. Once these players start figuring that out for themselves, then they're going to be able to truly make change. I also want to note that you said "Youth of the Nation" and the POD song popped in my head, and it hasn't left. So
Really?
I just want that out there,
Oh boy.
for
Throwback.
everybody else. Yeah, right. Um, this is just a shit show. The ACC, the SEC. Best of luck to them. They've clearly decided that they're going to move on and continue to play. That's teams like Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Syracuse, you name it, they're playing. We'll see. Florida, Miami. I really don't know. You know, and let's just throw LSU in there.
Hmm.
Um, Speaking of LSU, they had a former player drafted early on in the second round a couple years ago. He goes by the name of Darius Geis, or Juice for those who don't know how to pronounce it properly. Darius Geis was arrested last Friday for domestic violence. He was later released by Washington, the Washington football team. And obviously, he went unclaimed on waivers, and he's now an unrestricted free agent. This is not his first showing with DB next to his name. Um, if you read the reports, there are multiple instances which were documented by the woman that made the claims. She has photographic evidence of many of the claims that she's making. Um, I really don't. He's out on bond right now. He paid $10,000 bond to be released from jail, so he is at home. But he has a court date set, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me. August 28th, I think, is the day he will be in court. Um, I, I really don't know, but
I
I
mean, there's really not much to say other than that. It the evidence against him looks pretty strong, and I'm one. I believe in due process. I believe in you're innocent until proven guilty. So I'm not gonna say much to that effect, but the evidence is damning, and I pretty much don't think Darius Geis will ever be playing in the NFL ever again. Um, these acts were horrific, and my thoughts. I know your thoughts also go out to the victim in this
100%.
case. But
100%.
uh, you know what? The Washington football team is perfectly fine without him. They've got huge talent. Adrian Peterson, Bryce Love, who's coming back, who redshirted his rookie year, and then they just drafted um, I can't remember Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson, who ran a sub 4.4 40, who weighs in at 230 pounds, and was absolutely dominant last season in college. And he's another JUCO player that we can potentially talk about if he makes headlines this season. But they brought in J.D. McKissick and Peyton Barber. They are so deep at this position. It is kind of helps them when it comes down to cutting the roster. This was an easy one to make, and they'll be perfectly fine. They're not going to lose any scrimmage yards from the rushing game because of this, and they'll be perfectly fine. They're better off this way. Ron Rivera is going to run an even smoother team now, and I think they'll move on as normal.
Yeah, I want to just make two quick points. One, I think you talked about this yesterday when we were discussing everything for today. But there's talk about out there that the Washington football team may not have been so decisive with their actions against Darius Geis and releasing him from his contract if Ron Rivera had not been the head coach there. I fully agree. I think Ron Rivera runs a tight ship. He runs a clean ship, and he is a well respected head coach around the NFL by players and coaches alike. I believe that you're truly seeing signs that Washington has a culture change going on. It's not just a head coach; it's a complete culture overhaul. Daniel Snyder is not the one that's making the shots, calling the shots anymore. Ron Rivera is, and I think you're truly starting to see all of that. Number two, I cannot stress enough that these guys need to stop and think before they are doing what they're doing. Darius Guice was one of the young up and coming stars in the NFL, and he has seemingly thrown it all away because he made very poor decisions. I'm going to try to be as politically correct as possible. He made very terrible, poor decisions based on the evidence that we have seen. Now, again, I also believe in due process. I believe in innocent until proven guilty. But based on the evidence that I've seen, I think it is going to be very hard to disprove. Um, with that being said, I do send my thoughts and prayers out to the victim. There is nothing more despicable and disgusting that I think a, a person can do, other than you know the full. Um, there's a lot that's gone on. The NFL seems to struggle more than most leagues with players that are getting in trouble with the law. And we've seen a lot of it over the this past offseason. One of which happened not too recently. DeAndre Baker, the young cornerback for the New York Giants. I believe they were the same draft, were they not? Uh,
2018. So yeah.
yeah, they were both the same draft. Him and Darius Guice. He was a first round pick for the Giants. Was supposed to be a stud coming out of Ohio State. He was arrested on 4 counts of armed robbery, which each carry a minimum sentence of 10 years to a maximum of life. So he is facing a minimum of 40 years in prison, federal prison, to life, because based on the reports and the articles that have come out, he had won some money in a gambling ring that he was a part of. He wasn't paid the money that he won, so him and an accomplice or multiple accomplices went in with firearms, held people at gunpoint, and then robbed them of their belongings. Uh, I honestly don't know where to start with this one either, but the fact remains that DeAndre Baker is in a world of trouble. The Giants have not released him. He is still an active member of their roster. So I think we're still waiting word on what they're going to do. Nick, what are your thoughts on DeAndre
Well,
Baker?
I mean, I want to talk about both of these players, Geis and Baker. These are two players who came into the league with prior histories that scouts and coaches on those teams warned these organizations about them. They said, "Hey, they have a history of doing, bad things. They're not, they have some off the field issues. You should really watch out for them." And take this into consideration. And the Giants are like, okay, whatever. His film is great. We're gonna draft him in the first round. And guess what? 2 years later, you're never gonna have him back again. He's probably gonna spend the majority of the rest of his life in jail because he lost or was owed $150,000 and wanted to get paid, whereas he could have just let it go and continued his life in the NFL, had a bright future, and made much more than that. But he decided to take the other direction, and it's costing him big time, and it's costing the Giants big time. They lose out on their first round pick from 2018, and now they have to. It was going to be great tandem with DeAndre Baker and James Bradbury, who they just paid $45 million this offseason. So I think that's a huge loss. Now they need to refill that number two hole, and this is a very young team. And although they're not going too far, same thing with Washington. Although they're not going too far this year, they're still a team that's really close to putting something together. And you're not going to really understand what you have until you see it out on the field. but you're going to be set back by these losses, and it's really to their own faults. They should have done their research. They should have really listened to their sources, and I think other teams really need to start paying attention to all these reports that are coming out from other players who have off the field issues and start taking them more seriously, because the people aren't just giving you crap. They're not just telling you things to hurt the reputation of that player. No, they want to make sure that, because they have a reputation to protect themselves, and they're gonna make sure you're getting the facts straight up, and they're not gonna lie to you. So you know what, uh, it sucks to suck for these teams, but they should have done their research. For DeAndre Baker, what he did was absolutely stupid. I don't care if you lose some money in a game. You're a professional athlete who's a young, uh, who's at the start of his career, who has great potential ahead of him, and you have the opportunity to make so much more money than that. And there's just no excuses for his actions.
No, for sure. It should be noted that I believe there was a corner from the Seahawks that was also investigated, involved with this incident, but was released because there was insufficient evidence regarding his connection to everything that was going on. So
Quandre
with that,
Diggs, yeah.
is that who it was? Condre
Mm-hmm.
Diggs. Yeah. And, and this just goes to show. I mean, we're talking about the same offseason, Greg Robinson, the tackle from the Browns, who was arrested at the southern border of the United States with 157 pounds of marijuana. I mean, these players have so much, and they continue to throw it away. They really need to start truly thinking. Like it's there's so much on the line, and they're throwing it away for very dumb reasons. Um, I don't know. I just got to move on. Um, on the bright side, at least for me, and probably Nick, uh, the Patriots signed former Texans and Dolphins running back Lamar Miller to a 1 year deal. Uh, the deal comes after Brandon Bolden has decided that he will no longer be playing, and Sony Michel was put on the physically unable to perform list after offseason foot surgery. So Lamar Miller, who's a former two-time back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher from the Texans, only 2 years ago. Last year he missed with a torn ACL, but 2 years ago he had over 1,300 rushing yards for the Texans. He was a monster for them. I think as long as he can come back from the ACL, he can truly provide a stable. He can truly help the stable of running backs that New England has to offer. If Sony Michel is healthy, you're going to have Sony Michel, Lamar Miller, James White, Rex Burkhead, um, Damian
Damien Harris.
Harris,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe they have J.J. Taylor, who's an undrafted free agent running back out of the University of Arizona. Um, so that they have a whole stable of running backs that they can start to uh, whittle away at and choose from and utilize in camp and see who best fits. But Lamar Miller, a huge signing, and will definitely provide some depth for the running back room. Nick, quickly, your thoughts on Lamar Miller signing with the Pats?
Yeah, I think he's good for depth. He's a player who I think still has a lot in him. He's shown that even last year before he got hurt. The thing is, he can't stay healthy, and that's why he's had a little bit of trouble finding a job. Otherwise, he'd probably be signed to other teams would want to sign him. And I think he's good depth. He's a great pass catching back, and I think if James White were to come down with COVID or be out for any reason, that I think Lamar Miller would be able to fill that hole right away. I think he'd be able to just be a plug and play for them. He's not going to obviously not be a every down back. He's not even going to be a third down back. He's going to be there if they need him, and that's about it.
Yeah, Lamar Miller provides safety, and what's the biggest way to mitigate injury risk? That's stagnated playing. And when he's gonna with the Patriots, he's not going to be an every down back like you said. He's not going to be the premier back. He's going to mix it up. It could be 3 plays of Sony Michel, then 3 plays of Rex Burkhead. Then on third down, they throw James White out there, and then Lamar Miller takes the ball. It's keeping everybody's legs fresh and healthy. It's keeping everybody on their toes and everybody in the game and ready to play. So I think this works out for both the team and the player. Plus, you're going to be able to do a lot more in Josh McDaniel's new system that he's developing with Cam Newton. I don't know if you guys have heard what Josh had to say earlier in the week when he had an interview with the media, but he talked about how he's developing plays with Cam Newton to go over a lot of the terminology, but to also utilize his strengths to the best way that they possibly can, which I think is a very positive sign for Patriots fans. Those who are especially worried about how Cam Newton's going to fit with the coaching staff and how he's going to learn the playbook. I think we're hearing a lot of positivity coming from the coaches and their experience with working with Cam Newton so far. Um, with that being said, I believe that is all we have for the NFL. I just want to move on to our final topic, which is probably one thing that I know I've been looking forward to. Nick, I know you have been looking forward to. That'd be UFC 252. We have the Junior Dos Santos versus Jairzinho Rosenstruik, Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Cheetah Vera, and then Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. Round 3, the trilogy fight continues. So we're gonna start with the Junior Dos Santos versus Jairzinho Rosenstruik fight. This is a main event, this is a main card event. Um, Nick, what do you like about this fight, and who do you think is going to come out on top?
I think both of these fighters are exciting. Obviously, Jairzinho Rosenstrike has the strike power. He's a vicious striker. Obviously, we saw what he did to Alistair Overeem when he slit his lip open all the way to his nose, and it was probably the most gruesome cut ever in the UFC. And then you have Junior Dos Santos, who, if you look at what his shape right now, him in camp, he is the most shredded 42-year-old you'll ever see. Like it is unbelievable the condition he's in, and he's right now at around 202 pounds, which is, he can make light heavyweight. He's definitely gonna make the weight, and I think although they both are, there's a huge vast difference in age. Junior Dos Santos brings a lot to the table. He has a long history, he's had a lot of success in his career, and I think that he'll be able to maneuver himself around Jairzinho Rosenstrike and really figure him out. Rosenstrike is good for one thing, and if you can just take him down. Junior Dos Santos is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I think he's just gonna thrive on him. He's especially, it's a 25-foot cage. This is a huge thing that we need to consider or just put in the back of our head, is that this is a 25-foot cage versus a 30-foot cage. It's a 38% smaller cage than what they're used to. It significantly helps people who want to wrestle on the ground. And this is going to be huge for Junior Dos Santos, because Rosenstrike has nothing compared to JDS when it comes to groundwork. And I think JDS is really going to take it to him. I think this is going to be a very lopsided fight, and I expect JDS to come out on top.
So I think that you're right all the way up until your prediction. I think the biggest issue is that Junior Dos Santos is going to have a very hard time getting Rosenstruck to the ground. I think he's going to find that anytime he gets close, Rosenstruck is going to truly make it a battle to get him down and get him on the ground. If he does get on the ground, I think it's all but over after that point. But getting him down is going to be basically the fight of his life, because you're talking about a guy who wants to stand up, who wants to punch the ever living life out of you. And, you saw what he did to Alexander Overeem, but he's also coming off a loss. We saw what happened with Francis Ngannou and what he was able to do to Rosenstruck. So he went back to the drawing board. He got humbled a little bit. He's hungry again. He's not, he's not looking over his shoulder and saying, you know, who is this guy? He is really just focused in, and he knows that Junior Dos Santos is nobody to mess around with. This is somebody that he needs to keep upright. This is somebody he needs to fight physically, and he's going to truly have to win with his strength, because I don't think Junior Dos Santos has a chance if the match ends with them both standing.
I just want to say one more thing. The two real fights that Jairzinho Rozenstruik has had in the UFC. The first one against Alistair Overeem. Alistair Overeem was destroying him the entire fight up until the last 3 seconds, where Jairzinho Rozenstruik landed a lucky shot and knocked him out cold with a couple seconds left. Otherwise, it was going to be an overwhelming unanimous decision for the judges. And then 11 seconds with Francis Ngannou 2 months ago. 11 seconds he lasted and was knocked out. And I just don't think 2 months is enough time to learn much of anything. He faced a pure striker in that fight, and he didn't learn much. He didn't learn how to go to the ground. He didn't learn what he's going to be up against when it comes to JDS. And I think this is a completely different monster than what he's used to, because JDS isn't like your typical heavyweight. Most heavyweights just want to stand up and kickbox, and that's not what he is. He's more of a light heavyweight, and he's a lot more versatile, and he's gonna really use all the tools in his toolbox against Jairzinho Rozenstruik and absolutely make him look silly.
Um, all right, let's move on to the co-main event: Sugar Sean O'Malley
How dare
versus
you?
Marlon Cheetah. It's been a long day, my friend.
This I love this fight just because I am a major Sugar Sean O'Malley fan. I love this guy. I've been following him for a couple of years now, and I just we were talking about Joel Embiid before being cocky, not confident. Well, this Sugar Sean is confident, not cocky, and you gotta really follow him to understand that, because it's easy to mix up. But this guy is he is the future of the UFC. Dana said before he wants to bring him up slow, but it looks like he's bringing up a little bit faster, because he was supposed to be this fight was supposed to be the first fight on the main card, and now they bumped it up to co-main event, which is absolutely huge, because Sean O'Malley is ranked 14th right now, and Cheeto Vera isn't even ranked at all. And Cheeto Vera just lost earlier this year against Song Yadong, who is really the only reputable opponent he's had in the UFC. And I don't think there's really much Cheeto Vera has that Sean O'Malley can't handle. Sugar Sean is an absolute monster. He can hit you with anything. He's great for disguising his punches, and he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, it doesn't matter. He's gonna figure out a way. He's probably the most creative fighter, alongside Conor McGregor, and I think that he's going to have probably the fight of the night, the knockout of the night. He puts on absolutely spectacular shows. He is one of the biggest reasons you should be watching, besides the trilogy fight with Stipe and DC. He is a spectacle and absolutely worth every penny.
Yeah, I've seen Sugar Sean O'Malley. I haven't seen Marlon Cheetah Vera. In fact, I didn't even know who he was until I did some research for this very podcast and for this very matchup. With that being said, I don't think Sean O'Malley should have much of an issue trying to handle this guy. It seems like Marlon Cheetah Vera is still trying to figure things out, and he's doing that by just getting thrown to the wolves and hoping for the best. Well, I mean, there isn't really a much bigger wolf right now than Sugar Sean O'Malley, who's coming up at the same time and knocking everything down in his path. So, this will be interesting. I agree with you. I think Sugar Sean O'Malley will win this one. I think this will be a pretty quick fight, actually. I don't see it going the distance by any stretch. Um, all right, and the main event itself, the trilogy fight, Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier, the fight we've all wanted, the fight we've asked for. Dana is now giving it to us. Here we are. Nick, break it down for us.
Yeah, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. First time they fought, it was an absolute. It was a great fight, but Daniel Cormier did what he needed to get the win. And then the second time they fought, Daniel Cormier was absolutely destroying Stipe. That may be a little bit biased, but he was. He was owning that fight up until the third or fourth round when Stipe found a hole in the game plan of DC and just started going to the body, hitting the liver over and over and over, and hitting him with these nasty combinations until DC went down. And if it wasn't for that little adjustment, DC would have been the and still champ. We wouldn't even be talking about this fight right now. And I think DC has learned a lot from that. He's one of the smartest fighters in the UFC. And I think, although he is coming in probably heavier than what he was in the last fight, I think that he is going to absolutely dominate. And a huge part is due to this 25-foot ring. He is by far the more dominant wrestler. And he is going to utilize all of that weight he has and just push that onto Stipe, who's fighting closer to a lightweight right now. And that's going to really hurt him. You're going to take away the reach, you're going to take away the height. It's not going to matter. DC is just going to just put a lot of pressure on you and wear you down. And I don't expect this to be a very exciting fight. I think you're gonna have to get your excitement from the other ones, but I think DC. I think he's truly going to be dominant in this one, and he's going to go out on top.
Yeah, Daniel Cormier. I've heard him speak. Obviously, he calls a lot of fights. He does some play by play, and he works for the UFC. He hasn't been fighting for a while now. And then Stipe, he has his other profession, his main profession, I would say, as a firefighter at this point in time. Um, I think Daniel Cormier, it's going to be at the beginning, it may not look like you're thinking. I think they're going to have to knock the rust off of each other a little bit. I think it's going to be a little sloppy in the beginning. I think it's going to be um a little more of a brawl, and then I think we're really going to start getting into the weeds of it as time goes. But as far as this fight is concerned, I don't think Stipe Miocic truly has a chance. I think Daniel Cormier is one of the most renowned and well respected fighters of our generation. And I think that he has what it takes to just close out this trilogy fight. Like you said, I don't want to call it a fluke because Stipe won fair and square. He made the adjustment he had to, but Daniel Cormier was leading in that fight, and he had it. He was going to have it locked up if that adjustment wasn't made. So I think, given all the amount of time that he's had, even before this match was announced that it was even a possibility that they were talking about it, I'm sure Daniel Cormier had gone back to the drawing board. He had spoken with his team and his coach, and he had truly gone over some of the you know the things that he needed to do to win against Stipe.
Yeah, he definitely did. I think they're both. I mean, this is their third time going around, so I think they're both have a lot of knowledge with each other against each other, and I think they're gonna utilize everything that they have, especially DC. This is it. This is he said it a few times. This is gonna be it unless something major happens, and so he's gonna put it all out there. He's not going to. He wants to make sure when he goes out on top, he is the best of all time as the best heavyweight of all time. And this is really what this is going to decide. Who is the real heavyweight, the best heavyweight of all time, and uh, I think it's DC. Even before this fight, I think he's just done more in his career. He's a two-time champion or a two division champion, and I think that He isn't a fluke. I don't think what Stipe did it was a fluke, but I just think DC is by far the more superior fighter.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Daniel Cormier will come out on top, and I don't think it'll be that close of a match for what people are thinking. Those who aren't in too deep with the UFC, I think they see this as a major fight. They recognize the names and they're expecting a battle of the Titans. When I think it's going to be a little, I think it's going to be a little less exciting than that.
You're gonna want to think about the Usman Masvidal fight when approaching this. I think of it up against the cage. Them trying to, it's a struggle to get to the ground. If they do, it's going to be a lot of trying to get positioning. It's going to be very slow, very technical. So be prepared for that. If this is what you're paying for, maybe you're just going to want to watch the highlights at that point.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I think that's all we have for this week. I thank you guys for tuning in wherever you may be, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We do this every week on YouTube as well. Check out our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the like button, comment, subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications. We post every Wednesday. Our videos go live mostly every Wednesday. And make sure to check us out on Twitter. We consistently speak with our audience. We're always talking about sports on Twitter. Check out our socials down in the description. And anything you guys want to do, if you want us to talk about something, please put it in the comments. We love to talk with you guys. We love listening to what you guys have to say. I do want to make a shout out for all you New York Ranger fans out there. Congratulations on the #1 overall pick. The lottery balls hit your favor. We might be talking about that next week. I'm not going to make any promises, but there might be somebody who want to discuss it a little. We'll see. Well, I'm not sure yet. But in that case, I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Peace and love.
I stay loose, I stay hype, I stay loose, I stay hype, I stay loose, I stay hype. I could do this all night, cause I do what I like. Yeah, I do what I like. Yeah, I do what I like. Sipping goose, sip is right, and I go with the flow. Yeah, I go with the flow. Yeah, I go with the flow, cause I know I'm the show. In the zone, here I go. In the zone.